Hello everyone, welcome to this National Graphene 2D Association video interview. My name is Liam Critchley and I'm here on behalf of the NGA2D. I'm here with Dr. Jang from Global Graphene Group for today's Inside the Industry segment. For those who don't know, the Inside the Industry interviews are NGA exclusive video series talking to the key people within the US graphene industry about their role within the industry. So thank you for accepting my invitation today, Dr. Jang. So if we move on to the first question. Now, I'd like you to tell me about the discovery of graphene and how it happened, because I'm understood that you have an alternative story to what many people know.
Actually, I have been working on carbon nanomaterials since late 1980s and early 1990s. In the late 1990s, I got a little frustrated in working with vapor-grown carbon nanofibers and carbon nanotubes. They were excellent materials with impressive properties. However, at that time, they were really just too expensive. And so in late 1990s and probably the year 2000 or so, I was inspired by unique molecular structures of both single wall and multi-wall carbon nanotubes. So if you take a carbon nanotube and use an atomically sharp razor blade to cut the nanotube along the axial direction, and then flatten the structure to make a sheet, you obtain a graphene sheet, really. And so if you look at that graphene sheet, it actually is the, happen to be the building block of a graphite crystal or a graphite material. So by recognizing the structural similarity, my research team did two things in late 2001 and then early 2002. We grew this graphene sheet type of materials from small molecules. And then we also exfoliated a graphite structure to isolate and separate individual graphene plane or graphene sheet. And that happened in early 2002. And we began to file US patent application in 2002. That was 2 years before Drs. Andrugan and Dr. Novoselov published their milestone paper on graphene in 2004. That was in October 2004. And of course, that particular science paper eventually led to the two great scientists becoming the recipient of the 2010 Physics Nobel Prize. But by the time they, the two Manchester physicists submitted their paper to science, we had already submitted 3 US patent applications already. And I had tremendous respect for these two Nobel laureates. There's no doubt about that. But my story is just that these two scientists probably were not the ones who discovered graphene, but they did contribute to the graphene science tremendously, no doubt about that.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because I'm from near Manchester, so obviously I know the Manchester stories. But it is interesting, you know, to hear a different story about it coming out before, because obviously throughout science you always hear about one discovery, but then there's sometimes something that's preceded that which doesn't get, you know, as publicized. So it's very interesting to you know, to hear your side of the story as well, outside of, you know, what everyone else knows, because I feel it's probably a bit, you know, lesser known than obviously the Gaiman Novoselov discovery of graphene.
Okay.
So yeah, moving on from like the discovery of graphene, I'd like to just go into a bit more of like why you decided to set up, you know, the Global Graphene Group, and what's your role been over the years within both the company and like the US graphene industry itself? Because obviously you've been in this industry for, you know, quite some time now, and there's, you know, companies have been emerging over the years. So just, you know, tell me a little bit about, you know, your role over the years in the industry.
Okay. So actually in 1997, I co-founded a company called Nanotech Instruments Inc. And at that time, we received U.S. federal government grant to conduct research in the nanomaterials and energy storage technologies areas. And then my colleague, Dr. Aruna Zamu, and I co-founded Angstrom Materials in 2007 as a spin-off company from Nanotech Instrument Inc. And both Nanotech and Angstrom Materials will later merge and incorporated into Global Graphene Group, which Dr. Zamu and I co-founded also, and our investor suggested that we shouldn't have so many different companies and things like that. So we merged that into just one company called Global Graphene Group. And we like to call that G Cube.
G Cube.
or G3, but we prefer G Cube. And in 2007 or so, the business scope of Angstrom Materials really was to produce graphene and graphene oxide materials, and also to develop some graphene-based application products. And at that time, we were really very interested in working to scale up the graphene production processes in the hope that we could bring to the graphene industry high quality and affordable graphene materials. So even though that at that time, the market size for graphene really was relatively small. I'm talking about a period like between 2007, when we co-founded Angstrom Materials, and 2012. That period of time, really the market size was very small. I think mostly just the academic or research institution that were interested in using graphene for research and development purposes anyway. But we felt that it was important for the graphene industry to have one or two or maybe more companies that are able to mass produce graphene at affordable cost. So we make a decision to scale up the graphene oxide production capacity anyway, even though that we were not making much money at all during that period of time. Okay. Yeah, and however, the good thing is that by doing so, we actually had garnered, accumulated a tremendous amount of practical experience in terms of producing graphene cost effectively. And during the same period of time, our team also worked hard to develop application product for graphene. For instance, many people may not know, we were the one who invented graphene supercapacitor. That was as early as 2006. And then we were the one who invented graphene-based anode material and cathode material for lithium-ion battery, and that was in 2007. We were also the inventor of graphene thermal film, the heat spreader actually, and that was also as early as 2007. In other words, at that time we took both graphene and graphene oxide sheet, and then somehow combine them into a sheet form, and then make it into a so-called heat spreader. So we were the first one to do that. And we also invented graphene-based tire, graphene-based lubricant, and graphene composite, etc. It's quite a number of of the development at that time. So I saw that I think we certainly make good contribution to the graphene industry as a whole. Yeah.
Yeah, I can say because quite a few of them applications, especially like say tires, the energy storage applications, and like coincide their applications now, which are starting to really, become a bit more commercialized and come to find there's a few more companies around the world starting to, look at those type of applications. So it's interesting to see that how long they've actually been in, in development for over, over a decade or so, technically, if we're going back to when you started making these products. So it's interesting to see from where it's obviously started coming from to where it is where you can see the industry now, because those are some of the key key areas which are starting to produce actual products. So And speaking on, like, you've talked about like patents quite a bit. I'm led to believe you have, you know, is it over 300 patents out on graphene technologies?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, obviously, you must consider yourself, you know, being a great inventor of, you know, graphene technologies. And would you say this has kind of, you know, played a key part in what has made Global Graphene Group what it is today? Has that played a key part?
Uh, I would not hesitate to say that indeed our team has made highly significant contribution to our graphene industry, particularly in the technology development area. And however, even though that I had more than actually close 600 US patent now myself, and then out of that more than 300 so related to graphene technologies. I really would not consider myself a great inventor of graphene-based technology yet. Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, not really until our team succeed in commercializing more graphene-based technologies.
Yeah.
And the entire graphene industry become a thriving and dynamic industry, then we can say, yeah, I think we are really great graphene inventors. But we certainly did make good contributions to the graphene technology space.
So give it some time then.
Yeah, it would take some time, yeah.
Because that kind of like leads me in a bit as well onto my next question. Is like, because like obviously you've been in this business for a while now, and from what you've said, you've brought out quite a lot of graphene based technology and products. Now, what kind of, like, you know, future are you foreseeing for like yourself and Global Graphene Group? And obviously you've done a lot already in the past with developing graphene technologies, but is there anything that you plan on doing to help graphene become more adopted across, you know, different market sectors? Because obviously it's more adopted in some at the moment than it is others, but they're looking in the next 10 years to grow into other areas. I'm gonna say, have you got plans for the future in that regard?
Yeah, I see if you visit our website, for example,
Yeah.
Global Graphene Group's mission is to create essential technologies for a sustainable world. And we care very much about the climate change and all those issues. And so our immediate future goals really is to deliver battery technologies for example, electrical vehicles, including e-cars, e-trucks for delivery, e-motorcycle, etc. And also battery technology for energy storage system for wind energy, solar energy, and smart grids, etc. And so, as such, a significant proportion of G3's future efforts would be focused on not only development but commercialization of the battery technologies. And we have more than 300 US patents alone on battery technologies,
Right.
plus many international patent applications as well. So for myself, I would continue to assist our team in these endeavors, and then hopefully through our team's effort in trying to reduce the cost of graphene, that we can continue to contribute to the emergence of a vibrant graphene industry.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I'm going to go off on a little tangent here, because I was recently speaking to Bernard Munzig, who does the Graphene Reach consortium over in Europe, and because I was asking about, you know, the US contribution to that, and he told me that you're currently the only US company who are involved with.
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
He said that you're currently the only company that's actually US company that's actually involved with the Reach consortium at the moment, and obviously there's been news about you having like Reach certified products coming out. So do you think going like the Reach route and trying to get into other markets such as the EU market is going to help essentially you and your products to expand your markets?
Ted, I was at a meeting right now. Can I talk to you later, please? Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Not a problem.
I took nothing off. Yeah.
It's not a problem.
Yeah. Without REACH certification, it would be very challenging to bring any product to some of the key market territories, for example, Europe. And so we are delighted that that we are able to go through this procedure, and I think that is a very good starting point for our business. And actually, we have been trying to get into the European market for quite some time now. I think this will be a tipping point for us.
Yeah. And yeah, just thought I'd ask that because with you being the only one there, and the difference between the US and the other markets, just thought I'd ask about that, because I'm gonna go on to the next one, which is about the US graphene industry itself. Now, I've been, to quite a few events and around with the within the US and spoke to quite a few people, in the US, and there's like a general consensus, I'd say, that the US graphene industry needs to be, a bit more developed. It's maybe perhaps behind some other parts of the world, for example, like Europe, and because that's obviously quite well developed these days. So what do you think, like personally, the US graphene industry needs to do to kind of like match Europe and become a global player, like the industry as a whole? What do you think needs to be done?
Right, and this certainly is a very important question. And I'm of the opinion that the US graphene industry really is in need of at least two things. And one is that we as a industry here in the US need to build more dedicated large scale graphene manufacturing facilities in the USA here to bring the graphene cost down to a more affordable ranges. Some of us, a huge company were among the very first graphene company in the world. Okay, myself, our enzyme material in late 2006, early 2007, etc. And however, I think there are really very few graphene production facility, large scale, if any, here in the US. I think we need to do things like that, and hopefully that the US government or some of the state local government can help on that as well. And that is point number one. I think point number two, that the US company need to commercialize more unique applications of graphene. And it's even our own company, we have developed so many different graphene-based application products. Yeah, and then we have been able to commercialize a few of them, but there's more work that needs to be done in this. And so in terms of this second point here, related to the unique applications of graphene, I feel that we in graphene industry, not just the US, but also globally, that we must look for applications that make use of graphene's unique property that no other existing material can compete against. Okay, for example, graphene has the highest thermal conductivity among all materials known to scientists. And then in addition, graphene has exceptional permeation resistance that very few other materials can even come close. And furthermore, graphene can deliver a combination of exceptional mechanical strengths, electrical property, thermal conductivity, etc. This future presents tremendous opportunities for graphene. And quite unfortunately, that some of our colleagues in industry thinks that that graphene is here to compete against certain material that have very low cost. For example, carbon black. We would never be able to compete against carbon black in terms of dollars or euro per kilogram or things like that. I think our strength really in as far as graphene is concerned is to have some type of truly breakthrough graphene production and application technologies that can allow graphene to compete against other materials and the kind of property that other material cannot offer, like carbon black really cannot offer quite a lot of other properties that graphene can. So I think we need to, the industry need to recognize that we really should look for some very unique, or some people call them killer applications of graphene. And I think the team here, I'm hoping that the company here in the US can work together more like a consortium, then competing against each other, etc. I think if there is just one company like Global Graphene Group who is producing large scale or large quantity of graphene, the industry cannot survive either. I think we need to have a few of them.
Yeah, agree. And it's an interesting point you make on the second bit. It's kind of with graphene, it's not necessarily trying to target the low cost applications because you're never gonna compete with them. It's trying to find applications where you can, make use of like the added benefit, of adding graphene. It's focusing on the added value rather than the price point really is the applications you want to find. And it's an interesting point you bring up. Because you do see it's like with any technology, like whether it's graphene or carbon nanotubes or anything new, you'll find applications where there's just not a market for, or you're just never going to get into that market for, whether it's cost or other reasons. So I think, yeah, I agree. I think that a lot of the graphene industry, regardless of where it's located, needs to be smart of where they target. And I'd like to think that is getting better these days with the amount of people who are involved, from both companies to academia to to associations and to like the flagship. So hopefully that is something that will get better over the years. But, interesting points you raise there. So I'm just going to finish up, and you've probably touched on it in a few points here, but it's kind of like a standard end question I use for both video and written pieces. Is like, what impact do you see graphene having in society in general, and what do you think some of the key areas are going to be to look out for, in the future, so in like the next few years to a decade, for example?
Right, and I believe graphene can play a highly positive role in carbon dioxide reduction, for example, and renewable energy storage, smart grid stabilization, etc., through the development of graphene-enabled batteries, supercapacitors, fuel cell, and solar energy technologies. And that's a short answer to a very long story. I can talk about this topic all day long. Yeah, but to make it short, I think in the future, environmental protection, water desalination, saltwater desalination, water purification, biomedical sensor, etc., are some of the key areas to look out for in the future. I believe that graphene really can play a role in improving the human life and the quality of life across the globe. That's a short answer.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, just to wrap it up, thank you for taking the time to come and speak with me today, and be part of the NJ2D video series. And for anyone watching, I really hope it's been insightful and you got a bit more insights into the graphene industry itself. So thank you for Dr. Jang of Global Graphene Group. I've been Liam from the NJ2D, and until next time, goodbye.